I have some good news. My son has decided to join the project. His interest is in art, so he'll be using the project to build up his portfolio and to get familiar with some of the tools that are used to produce digital art. And I'm looking forward to making use of some artwork that is a lot higher quality than the pedestrian art that I've been producing so far. Anyway, this video is about artifacts. So here's an army screen, and there are different sections to the screen that can accommodate artifacts in different ways. So we have the hero doll, which is heavily inspired by the Heroes 3 hero doll, which was the most elaborate implementation of artifacts in the Heroes of Might and Magic series. But there are also other sections which were inspired by other games or are just original. So we have the army section, which can also hold artifacts. We have the unit stacks. Each unit stack can have its own artifact, and we have storage, where we can keep unused artifacts. The storage is the equivalent of a backpack from Heroes 3. Each artifact slot can hold a particular kind or kinds of artifacts. So hands can hold, each hand can hold a weapon, a shield or a glove. And then we have the ring for the finger, we have the tunic for the torso, and so on. Now, a blowpipe is a weapon, so it can be placed into either hand. As you can see from the green border, it can't be placed anywhere else on the body. So we can put it in the right hand, we can put it in the left hand, or we can put it back in storage. So the highlighting here is done with the green border that's much thinner, indicating that yes, you can place the blowpipe here, but it won't be used here. This is just storage. Similarly, a heart of oak. The heart of oak provides us with wooden walls. Now, a wall is not something that a hero would carry, so it's something that goes into the army artifact layout. And once the artifact is placed there, the army gets walls. And because the walls are not a property of the tile, they're not erected on a tile, when we move the army, we move the walls with the army. And of course, once we remove the artifact, the walls disappear. So this can be thought of as an alternative way of constructing buildings to what's normally done in the Heroes of Might and Magic series. Of course, we could place this artifact on a corresponding artifact slot on a map structure rather than an army, and then the walls would be permanent, or at least they would be tied to that map structure, at least until we remove the artifact. So I'm hoping that this would provide a more dynamic way of constructing buildings, and also it will hopefully require some skill to choose which is the optimal way to use the artifacts. Now, just to see how this functionality works, so when we click on an artifact, it becomes selected, so that's shown by the rainbow border. If we click on it again, it becomes unselected. If we click on any of the empty slots, then nothing happens. If we want to move the artifact into a slot where it's not compatible, by swapping it with whatever is there, then this artifact will become unselected and the new one will become selected. And similarly here. Now here the blowpipe can go into storage, but the heart of oak can't go where the blowpipe is, so they can't be swapped. So again, the new slot becomes selected. And if they're both in storage, so both can be stored here, then clicking on one and then the other will swap them. Alright. Now, this is implemented in a different way from the various videos that I've seen that show how to implement the drag and drop type functionality in Godot. So Godot does provide some out-of-the-box methods that can be used to achieve this kind of functionality. I chose not to use them here. Now the reason is that I already have a game state engine that's written in C# that understands the game rules. So it knows how artifacts work, how artifact slots work, what makes them compatible, how armies, units, heroes, how they behave, all that. So all that's already implemented here. And then separately from that, I have a presentation layer, which is written in GDScript, which knows how to display all of this. So it knows how to draw this screen based on the current state of the game. But it doesn't understand the game rules. It just knows how to display things. And if I were to make use of the built-in Godot functionality for implementing drag and drop, then I would have had to duplicate some of the game rules inside the presentation layer, so that the presentation layer can know which slots can hold which artifacts and so on. And I didn't want to do that. So I wanted to keep the two separate. So what I did instead is I implemented the presentation layer so that it doesn't try to figure out what to do in response to, let's say, an artifact slot being selected or being clicked. It delegates that functionality to the game state engine. So it just calls the game state engine, passes information, and then says, okay, look, this has been clicked on, you figure out what should happen as a result, and then just tell me what I must draw. Okay, so in this case, if we click on, let's say, the how to work here, so we're clicking on a particular artifact slot in the storage. So slot number 2 in the storage section. If we look over here, so we are dealing with storage and we're dealing with slot number 2. So what happens is that it will call this function, this method here, on artifact button pressed inside the army canvas script, and it will pass it 2 parameters. The first one with a value of 4 and the second one with a value of 2, as you can see here from the log. So what that will do is it will come to this method here, pass the 2 parameters, and the method will log that, and all it will do is just delegate the functionality to the game state engine and say, look, this has been clicked on, you handle it. So we need to go to the game state engine and look for the click on artifact slot method. So that's the method over here. So it receives the 2 parameters. It receives section 4 artifact slot 2. By the way, section 4 is storage. So section 1 is the army. So this is in terms of the artifact sections. So section 1 is the army, which can hold some artifacts. Section 2 is a hero. Section 3 is the unit stacks. And section 4 is the storage. And then we have slot number 2 inside there. Right. And what this method will do is that it will basically call this method here to figure out what to do in response to that particular artifact slot being clicked, and then it will emit a signal which will tell the presentation layer of Godot that, look, the army view has changed as a result of that click. Please display the new state of the army on that screen, and it will pass the data that it needs to display. And then the presentation layer has logic. So if we go here, it knows, or at least it is listening to the army view changing. That's connected to the on army view changed method. It just delegates it to update army view method. Basically, it receives the army information that's constructed here with that highlighted code. It finds the army canvas because that's where the script is for handling that, and it says, okay, army canvas, display the new state of the army, and then army canvas has that method over here, and it knows how to display the hero panel, army, hero doll. Okay, so the hero panel is this panel over here. This is the army panel, the hero doll panel, and so on. So it knows how to display those. And if you look at, let's say, the army panel here, all it does is it loops through the artifact slots in that section of the army, in a section of the data structure, and then for each artifact slot that it displays, it works out what the artifact image looks like, if there is one, and it also knows how to respond to these properties. So, for example, if the current artifact slot that it's busy drawing, if it can hold a selected artifact, then it displays this image. So it displays the square with a thick green border. Whereas if the artifact slot is the one that's been selected, then it displays the square with the rainbow border. So that's the rainbow versus the thick green border here. All right. Now the way that the artifact slots are structured, that's over here. So each artifact slot in the presentation layer, it contains the button. So this is what contains the actual image of the artifact and what you click on. And then there's the selection image. So this is what will contain either the rainbow border or the green border or no border if there's no special status to that slot. And there's also the artifact description. So that's the text inside each of the slots. Yeah. All right. Now, if we go back to the game state engine, so how does it handle a click? Okay, so it will receive. Okay, let me just go back here. So there's three parameters that are passed in. So there are two parameters that indicate what has been clicked. So that's the artifact section and the slot name, so 4 and 2. And then there's also the current state of the army screen. Now, that contains information about the army that we are displaying, as well as what artifact slot has been selected previously, if any. And army contains everything about the army. So in here we know who the hero is. We know everything about the hero. We know what units make up the army. We know what artifacts are in there. All that kind of thing. So the full army set of information is available here. Okay. So that's passed to this method over here. Now, what this method does is it figures out, well, what section of the screen are we dealing with? So it could be basically army, hero, unit, or storage. And then it delegates the work over here. Now, in here, depending on what section of the screen we're dealing with, we are interested in a different set of artifact slots. So it could be hero artifact slots or army or storage. I haven't yet implemented the unit one over here. So I still need to do that. Now, once we have identified the artifact slots that we're interested in, the logic is the same for all of them. So, for example, let's say that this is the first time okay, so we come to the screen for the first time. At the moment, nothing is selected. So let's say that we click on how to work at this point. So nothing is selected, and the clicked artifact slot is storage slot number 2. So we check, okay, now is the selected artifact section null? If it's null, it means nothing is selected. That is the case now. And then we check, okay, now the clicked on artifact slot, does it contain an artifact? In our case it does. It contains how to work. So both conditions are satisfied, which means that this functionality executes, and that's it. The else part doesn't get executed now because the criteria for this are met. And all that happens is that the army screen state changes so that the selected artifact slot becomes the one that we clicked on. Now, where did the border come from, and why did mask cursor change? Okay, so that isn't here. In here, all we know is that a new artifact slot has been selected. There's logic here to populate the data structure to pass to the representation layer, which handles the mask changes and so on. It has a section for the artifact repository. And in here, we have the logic to basically populate the artifact slots, essentially the data structure that we pass to the representation layer for different sections of the army. It also has the logic to figure out which slots are selected, which ones are compatible with whatever has been selected, as well as to figure out what or how the mouse cursor should change based on what's selected. So if we look at, let's say, mark dragging artifact, for example, this is a very simple one. We look at the current army screen state. We check, okay, now if there is a slot that's been selected, and if it has an artifact, then, well, go to its template and pull out the name of the artifact, and then make that the name of the artifact that should be dragged. So let's look for this property inside the presentation layer. And we go back to Army Canvas. Okay, so if we look for it here, we see that it's used as a parameter to this method call. So we call change mouse cursor and we pass it the name of the artifact that should be dragged. And then here saying, well, if there isn't one, then reset the custom mouse cursor, so basically go back to the pointy arrow. But if there is one, so in our case it will be how to work once we click on it, then get the image for the how to work and make that the custom mouse cursor. And that's how we end up with the how to work basically being moved around with the mouse. And that's essentially how this functionality works. Now there are two more bits of functionality that has to do with artifacts, besides finishing the unit implementation, that I still want to do, that are not so trivial to figure out. Okay, so one is I want to cater for multiple hero artifact layouts. So this here is a humanoid layout. So this will be used by goblins here, or humans, dwarves, elves, those kinds of creatures. But say that we have a dragon hero. There's no reason why a dragon hero should use this kind of artifact layout. So I want to cater for multiple hero layouts, which I think would just be more realistic and hopefully more fun than just one. So if we look at let me check rule engine creation artifact layout template creator. Okay, so in here we have all the different artifact layouts that the game knows about so far. So here's a humanoid one. So this is what we've been looking at on the screen so far. But if we have, let's say, a Naga hero should have 4 arms, not 2, and will also have a tail, not legs. So the kinds of artifacts, or at least the artifact arrangement that a Naga hero would be able to have should be different from what a humanoid one can do. Like the tail, for example, you could wear a tunic or a ring on it, as opposed to a boot. Or the dragon hero that I mentioned, dragons have 4 legs, so they should be able to wear 4 boots, not just 2, as well as having wings and horns. And spiders, spiders are all about boots. So that's something I would like the game to have. Now the way the screen is currently implemented is that it's basically hard-coded. So if we go over here and we look at the doll, so the doll image is basically the humanoid one, and that's just how it's preloaded. Now I could just implement multiple versions of this, so we could have, let's say, a humanoid doll section versus a dragon doll section versus others, and then just display the appropriate one depending on who the hero is. Now that should work, but what I also want to do with the game is that I want to make it easy to mod. And to me that means that it should be possible, or hopefully straightforward, to make changes to how the game works. So basically to create new artifacts slots, new artifact types, new artifact layouts, to do all that by just editing data files. It shouldn't be necessary to have access to the source code inside this kind of development environment to be able to make those kinds of changes. A modder should be able to just take the data files that ship with the game and add those things to it, which means that information about where these artifact slots appear and what the layout looks like and so on, that information should be hard-coded inside the Godot presentation layer. It should be passed in from the game state engine, which would read it from a file or files. So that's something I still need to figure out how best to do, and I don't think it's trivial, and I don't know when I'll get around to it, but when I do, it will probably be the subject of a future video.